A wonderful good morning to everyone. Welcome to a new crypto update video. Bitcoin at 74,000 US dollars. Well, what can you say? Yesterday, we briefly shot up towards 76,000 US dollars. And then we briefly made a higher high only to close right back below it. So a perfect liquidity wick above the last liquidity wick and then immediately back down a bit. It's not really all that dramatic. The only problem I still see is simply the volume. We're extremely driven by futures, less by spot. Briefly yesterday, but in the end, nothing has changed. The war continues, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, there are new peace talks just like last weekend. Let's see what comes of it. And apparently a Chinese tanker was detained by the US Navy. Next escalation incoming. But who even cares about all that? The markets are pumping like crazy, gold is pumping, stocks are pumping, everything is fine. Now let's take a look at everything. But before we get started, as always, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, feel free to join the free Telegram talk and Signal group as well. If you're interested in updates, news, and signals, you're welcome to join. You'll find the link for that for free down in the video description. I also sold a few stocks yesterday, and I'll go into more detail about that as well during the course of the video. So let's start with the latest news. All right, stock prices are making up for war losses, thanks to hopes for talks. And that's how far things have come. The war is, well, how should I put it? Ever since Donald Trump first made statements repeatedly saying, yes, peace talks are happening and there's a ceasefire and so on, since then we've known that the stock market reacts less and less. Well, let's say less to fundamentals or macro news and more to bullshit. I think that's a pretty accurate way to put it. The market currently doesn't care at all about the war. And what else? And oil shortages, and possibly, as we saw yesterday when we looked at the economic data, higher producer prices. Nobody cares. Inflation is back, producer prices are rising, the labor market is probably faltering. Sooner or later into a recession. Yes, it will probably happen sooner or later. And the IMF, that is the International Monetary Fund, is warning of a recession, or rather an economic downturn. The gross domestic product is no longer expected to grow as strongly as currently planned. These are the wonderful prospects we have at the moment, but the markets don't care. It's a strange market phase, I'm telling you honestly. If we take a quick look at the spot order book, this is the current status today. Well, since 9:40 p.m., a bit of buying pressure is coming in. But if we compare this to yesterday, if you watched the video yesterday, we were at 40 to 50 million all day yesterday. Spot sales. So what we're seeing here now is really just a damp squib. Sorry for the language, but that's just how it is. So it's really not that much either. Let's take a look at the heat map. To the upside, everything has finally, I have to say, finally been cleared out. The next interesting zone is around 70 to 65K. So these are still the same zones we had before. Fundamentally, as I said, nothing has really changed. The markets are actually still completely on edge, or rather they should be completely. Well, let's put it this way, react differently. Given the current outlook, things just don't look good. Recession, rising unemployment, rising inflation, which in turn should actually lead us to see rising interest rates. But that's not being priced in at all. So there probably won't be an interest rate hike, which somehow makes no sense with rising inflation and rising producer prices, because somehow you have to counteract that. But nobody cares, that's how far things have come. Unfortunately, that's what has to be said at this point. Let's take another quick look at Twitter. The IMF has also issued another warning, the International Monetary Fund, that there could possibly be some liquidity shortages because many are currently selling off their bonds. Speaking of bonds, if we take another look, I think in England, the 10-year bonds were trading at 5%. If we look at the other countries, so the USA is still, even despite the supposedly positive outlook in discussions, despite the rising stock markets, government bonds are still exorbitantly high. Seriously, and that's really not good. No matter where we look, Europe is above 3%. The 10-year bonds are not a good environment, let's be honest. So if we look back, let's say just a year and a half ago, we were still at 2.1% and now at 3%. That's a problem for, well, let's say the housing market or for long-term loans or anything like that. And crypto, well, what can you say? Crypto is still in its possibly, for me, it's still a bear phase. And for me, the scenario that we could go down again is still absolutely valid. So despite the recent days where we've seen some upward movement, for me, it's still far, far from over. As I said, let's dive a little deeper. The spot volume, in the end, spot is still being sold off. We're seeing with futures, or rather with perps meaning long positions, there's a clear increase. So here too, there's a slight divergence. Heat map on the 30-minute time frame. In the end, just as I said, the largest liquidity has been cleared out. Everything else is directly below us, so that's also more in favor of a move down. What speaks in favor of up? I found some news that at least somewhat supports an upward move, and that's ASML. ASML raises its revenue forecast for 2026 as AI investments are driving growth. I basically agree with that. The net revenue this year will be between 36 billion and 40 billion, according to the Dutch company. Wednesday. For comparison, the previous forecast was between 34 and 39 billion. So that's a clear increase when it comes to growth. Let's take a quick look at the stock. The stock is still heading toward its all-time high, but the earnings are still to come. And that's the big point. Now, there is revenue growth and so on. Yes, everything is supposed to keep rising in the end, but the forecast is what's important. And that's why this could be a bit of a game changer this afternoon, or rather in the evening, if ASML really conjures up the earnings, so to speak, or announces them. That's what it's going to come down to now. That's what matters now. It's an important chip producer, or rather semiconductor manufacturer, which of course is also crucial for Nvidia and other stocks. If something goes wrong here today, then this range will probably be broken to the downside again, and we may have to prepare ourselves for the next crisis. So today is going to be a very, very important day, which will of course also set the pace for crypto and other assets. Crypto, as I said, remains absolutely uninteresting to me. I'll be honest with you, for me, the whole market right now is just complete bullshit and still uninteresting. I'm still short, I'm still long, nothing has changed, and that's that. I could mention it 100 times, but that's just how it is. By the way, Bank of America also has earnings today, just came to mind. Otherwise, let's move over to Ethereum. So altcoins, in the end, it's the same game. Liquidity gets cut off at the top and that's it, just like with another high over here. Solana, same story, liquidity hunted, and it's always the same game. We have no volume, we're always trading the liquidity, always the wicks up here, always the same, just barely a higher high, only to then make a complete turnaround to the downside again. The situation remains tense globally. Energy crisis, the EU is still discussing how to save energy, just let people stay at home like in a lockdown, for example, is one solution. What bullshit. But that's the situation we're currently dealing with. And as long as oil is still above 90, that's not a positive sign, is it? Yes, we've dropped 10% again after shooting up 10% before. On Monday or over the weekend, after no peace talks took place, or rather no solution was found, and still no solution has been found, but the oil price is slumping downward anyway because there's renewed hope for new peace talks. You can just see how stupid, sorry, but it's true, how stupid this market is right now, that no solution can also lead to falling prices because there are new peace talks and the bullshit just keeps going. And that's the market we have to deal with at the moment somehow. And that's absolute bullshit if you ask me. But well, that's how it is. Before we move on to the stocks, just a quick note, the promotion for BingX is only running for 2 more days. Register for VIP 2 for 1 month and get an additional 30% futures bonus. That means, for example, if you deposit 500 USDT, you'll get another 120 USDT. You get a bonus voucher on top of that, so feel free to check it out. The promotion is only valid for 1 more day and 17 hours, which is why I'm advertising it again now. And since I'll be on vacation for a week, so check it out. I'll also post it again in all the Telegram groups. The link is below in the video description or in the comment section. So let's move on to the, first to the Forex markets. The dollar is still under pressure, which doesn't make any sense, but okay, let's leave it at that. In return, the euro is currently much stronger and is climbing back towards 1.18, which is really, really strong. I honestly didn't expect us to move this strongly. We're still in this overarching range. So the support at the bottom has held. Still, I'm not convinced. At the moment, I'm staying completely out of Forex as well. Gold, on the other hand, is pumping, and silver is also pumping for now, but you have to be a bit careful. Because as I said, interest rates are staying higher for longer. That's clear. We may not have seen a real crash in the stock markets yet, or rather where gold might be liquidated again. We're now in, let's say, in important times, if we draw a fib level here, from the top to the bottom, then we're exactly here heading towards the golden pocket. It's the same story with silver. We're approaching the golden pocket from this downward movement. That means here too, things could run out of steam for a bit. And that's actually the same thing we're currently seeing in the stock markets. In my opinion, the DAX is now at least here in wave 5. In wave 5, we had waves 1, 2, 3, 4, and now the 5. It's always a bit tricky to time, that's why. I would completely stay away from this for now anyway. Let's move on to the important stocks. Dow Jones is in the perfect wave B in the golden pocket, or rather 0.786 level. NASDAQ has even gone up to the maximum, reaching the 0.886 level. But, and this is the problem I've been telling you about over the past few days, for me, it's the volume. No matter where we look, for example, if we go to the daily time frame, NASDAQ, the volume is below average. If we look at the S&P 500, the volume is also below average. But here too, we've reached up to the 0.886 level. For me, this scenario is still absolutely possible. I'll be honest with you, no matter what happens, it's still possible that we'll see these levels down here, even with the same patterns. I just don't like it at all, even though the S&P 500 is heading toward all-time highs. It just doesn't make sense to have such increases in such a short time. While the volatility index is still at 20, that's the problem I have with it at the moment. While the S&P is rising, the volatility index should actually be dropping all the way down, but it's not. Honestly, yesterday it was even pretty much at consolidation level, and today it's the same. It just doesn't add up, and the oil price is rising. Something is just completely off in this market right now. That's why I decided yesterday, I posted it in the Telegram group for 3 stocks. I sold Amazon. By the way, I sold everything, so the savings plan is still running as usual, but otherwise I've now sold all my Amazon holdings for the time being. Why? Let's take a quick look at the stock. The stock shot up by 25% in a very short time, and that within just 14 days. Here we had our bottom on March 30th. And now we've risen 25%, so I sold the stock completely. I still assume that this is the B wave and that we will still get a C downward wave. Google sold 25% after the stock rose 20%. And then last but not least, where do we have it here? Iron, for those who went along, the stock has now simply risen by 47%. I sold 33% of the entire stock here. Let's wait and see, but no one has ever gone broke by taking profits. And for me, as I said, it's the market situation. That's why I only took 33% here because, as I mentioned, the volume actually doesn't look all that bad. But the market situation is still absolutely unclear to me and still doesn't make any sense. Let's wait and see. Otherwise, I'd say we'll talk again next week on Tuesday. For now, I'm on vacation. Over the next few days, I'll keep you updated from time to time in the Telegram group, so there will definitely be updates. I'm not going to skimp on that, but there just won't be any videos for now. See you next week on Tuesday. And yes, we'll catch up again then for the live stream. Otherwise, I wish you a great rest of the week, of course. Don't let yourselves get unsettled. Take a little distance from the chart. That might not be such a bad idea. And yes, otherwise, we'll catch up in the Telegram group. I wish you a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. Until then, ciao, ciao. And as always, stay crypto.